CEO Daddy. Chapter 1227. She didn't seem to mind. It was the first time that Alvina Miller had been kissed by a man with such deep emotions. Her heart was beating so hard, but her breathing was stagnant, and her beautiful eyes were round, staring closely at the man with narrow eyes. In the end, the man seemed to be unable to carry on with the kiss any further, because this woman's eyes were as big as a rabbit's, causing him to feel an inexplicable sense of guilt. When Alvina Miller reacted, she had already instinctively forcefully pushed him away. In the next second, she raised the back of her hand and pressed it against her lips. "Alvina, I'll call you that from now on." The man looked at Alvina's frightened expression, but his tone was extremely gentle. He also decided to call her by her nickname and no call her surname, because he wanted to give her his surname. Alvina Miller had not even finished one breath, and after hearing such overbearing words from him, her face immediately flushed red, and even her ears started to fire up. "No," she protested angrily, because he kissed her without her consent. Now he still seduced her with such a gentle tone. Did he really think she has such a good idea? Why, Joseph Grant did not expect that she would actually object, and his handsome face revealed shock. "There's no other reason. Joseph Grant, you are really annoying sometimes." Alvina Miller was already so embarrassed that she was incoherent, although she would always say some bold words, but she was actually a conservative and well-behaved girl. At that moment, she no longer knew what she wanted to say. She turned and ran back to her room. "Hate?" The man's gaze stiffened slightly. His gaze followed closely behind her figure and stopped at the door of her bedroom. Was he being too impatient? Did he just offend her? Joseph Grant secretly regretted it inside. He was clearly not a person who lost control of his impulses. But why had he lost his usual rationality and calmness tonight and become so willful? Alvina Miller had only moved in for a few days, and he already did such an excessive thing to her. And no wonder she was angry. It seemed that he would have to apologize to her tomorrow and promise that nothing would happen again. Alvina Miller leaned against the door wall. Her hands covered his face, which was boiling hot. Oh my God, what happened to her? Why was her anger short? So, this is a kiss. She hadn't had a good time earlier, but at this moment, she began to reminisce. As a girl who was born curious, Alvina Miller would never have felt that she had anything to do with her being kissed. She had read many books, novels, and televisions, and when the male and female protagonists kissed together, that beautiful and romantic description was simply like fireworks in the world. She had obviously been thinking about what kind of taste this would have, but just now, she personally experienced it. It turned out that the feeling of her heart pounding was real. Too much. She muttered something, but she smiled and laughed so hard that she didn't even realize it. The morning of the next day, Joseph Grant woke up very early. Last night, he had an unprecedented insomnia. In his half-sleep, he would always remember the feeling when he had kissed her. The soft and smooth lips were like jelly, making him unable to forget it even if he wanted to. He would entangle his heart and enter deep into his dreams. Joseph Grant knew that this was the feeling of being moved. He suddenly understood why Dempsey would make all kinds of efforts to win the favor of his wife. Because love was such a charm, which can lead a person desperate and give up everything. Thus, Mr. Vice President woke up early in the morning. He decided to make breakfast for Alvina Miller to express his apology to her for last night. Alvina Miller also did not rest well, but the alarm clock was set to start chiming on time. Thinking that she was no longer an idler, she immediately became alert, donned her clothes, and quickly went downstairs. The man wore a long, sleeved white shirt, and his whole body was filled with a repulsive aura. When the sun came in from outside the window, he stood by the side of the dining room against the light, looking at her. This image hit right into Alvina Miller's brain, stunning her for a moment. Morning. Do you not sleep well yesterday? Joseph Grant's gaze was sharp, and was able to see the sleepiness in her expression. He asked while smiling, and walked towards her. Alvina Miller's gaze could not be avoided. She could only look straight at him, because in this room, the person who attracted her gaze the most was this man, and the smile on his face. It was as if he was like the warm sun outside the window, irresistible. Isn't it all because of you? Alvina Miller decided not to avoid this topic. She raised the corner of her mouth and muttered, "Yesterday, my actions were indeed a bit excessive. It is natural for you to be angry, but I promise you that this kind of thing will never happen again." Joseph Grant was so anxious that he wanted to dispel her resentment, which was why he had walked over to assure her that this would happen. Is that so? Alvina Miller was a little surprised. She thought that this man would take it for granted, but she didn't expect him to actually say this to her so early in the morning. "Yes, I've decided that I won't offend you again until we are engaged," what Joseph Grant said. Even he was not confident of himself, so his words carried a sense of guilt. Alvina Miller knew that Joseph Grant was an upright man who absolutely disdained to do anything shameless to women. However, hearing him say such words, she felt an inexplicable sense of loss. Weird. Did I really like him treating me like that? Was that so? Actually, I don't pursue the matter of you kissing me yesterday. Alvina Miller nervously ran a hand through her long hair, and then, uncomfortably flashed her eyes twice. If you really like me, I feel like I don't have to suppress some of my emotions. Really, I can accept it. Joseph Grant. Both of Alvina Miller's small hands were once again twisted in front of her chest to cover her panic. As she smiled, "Joseph Grant, we are all adults. As long as you can be responsible for your own actions, I don't think there's a need to follow any rules. What do you think?" Joseph Grant's eyes flashed with astonishment. He obviously did not expect this woman to not be angry, and even said such outrageous words to him. "Alvina, do you really not mind what happened last night?" Although Joseph Grant was surprised, he also secretly heaved a sigh of relief. "That is my first kiss. What about you?" Alvina Miller suddenly held her hands behind her back, and said while blushing. Joseph Grant was startled. He was slightly embarrassed. "Yes, but haven't we also kissed before? That doesn't count. That was an accident." Alvina Miller immediately emphasized her words, but then felt that she had said it a little more casually, and immediately laughed out loud. "Forget it. Let's not pursue this matter any further. If you love me, I am very happy." Really, Joseph Grant did not expect her to be so straightforward, which actually made him feel awkward. "It's true. If you like me, you should tell me. Our current relationship doesn't seem to be suitable for a hidden relationship, right?" Alvina Miller had so many reasons to explain everything. "All right, since you say so, then we'll get along." Joseph Grant was tangled up on the topic of conversation for the whole night, disappeared without a trace in an instant. Because of this woman's understanding intolerance, he gradually liked Alvina Miller's straightforward character. If she had anything to say, she would explain it clearly so that she wouldn't feel resentful and cause even more misunderstandings. Do you make me breakfast? Alvina Miller skipped down the last staircase and towards the dining table. There were warm milk, baked bread, and fried poached eggs on the table. I'm sorry to have you cook every day. Alvina Miller looked back and smiled at him. It's fine. I like cooking for you. Joseph Grant lowered his head and laughed somewhat awkwardly. They sat at the dining table and finished their breakfast in the sunlight outside the window. Joseph Grant took the opportunity to clean up a bit before finally standing at the door. He watched Alvina Miller drove her small sports car out of the garage. Let me go first. Alvina Miller did not have Joseph Grant's identity. She was just a small employee who had to be on time for work. Joseph Grant watched as her sports car sped away like smoke. He shook his head with a slight smile. This woman had thought about everything simply. It was clear that they wouldn't be tired together in the future. Chapter 1228. Check the family background. As Dempsey was the elder brother, he naturally had to express himself, since the younger brother's wife was pregnant. Therefore, he asked Larry Carter to buy some gifts for her, both for the baby and the woman. After buying one car, he personally delivered it to Elizabeth's villa. At the main entrance, Larry Carter pressed the doorbell, and in a short while, someone opened the door, and he drove in his car. Who is he? Fiona stood at the door and asked me. I don't know, but I heard that Dempsey arranged for someone to come over to send us something. May crossed her arms in front of her chest, as she began to size him up. Larry Carter stopped his car, pushed the door, and when he raised his head, he saw May. May also saw him, and he was shocked. Why is it you? Of course, May would not forget the day when they collided ruthlessly with each other in the hospital. Larry Carter pushed his glasses with the gold frame and put on his professional smile. I am Dempsey's assistant. My name is Larry Carter. I am here to deliver a gift for Miss Elizabeth on behalf of my boss. Oh, so it's you. Then could I trouble you to help me move the gift in? May said with a light tone. All right. On the other hand, Larry Carter did not care about her anymore, but upon thinking that the glasses that she had stepped on was a precious item that he had worn for more than 10 years, he felt some resentment towards May. Fiona stood at the side and watched. She took the opportunity to ask May, he's the bad guy that you were always thinking about, but I don't think so. Hey, lower your voice. How could I have any thoughts? May was so scared that she quickly reached out to cover Fiona's mouth. She was afraid that Larry Carter would hear it and embarrass her. If I remember correctly, you mentioned this man to me no less than 10 times, maybe more than 20 times. Fiona, are you sure mad at me, right? I think that's all he looks like. Although May said that, her gaze still continued to scan back and forth Larry Carter. Larry Carter finally moved everything, and sweat started to appear on his forehead. Is Miss Elizabeth resting upstairs? Please tell her that I won't disturb her rest any longer. Larry Carter maintained his smile and said, Hey, do you want to drink some water before you leave? Seeing that he was about to leave, May immediately called out to him with the no-reason courage. No need to trouble yourself. I have to hurry back to the company. Fiona suddenly walked over, blocking his way. May invites you to drink water. You just drink. You're a man. Don't be so awkward. Larry Carter's appearance could be considered gentle. Moreover, he was extremely delicate and pretty. Suddenly, a woman extended her hand out to block his path, causing him to be in a daze for a moment. Fiona. May immediately blushed red. Of course, Larry Carter would not tell women about it. Furthermore, these two people were staying at the Joshua Wilson's house, so they can be considered friends. He tactfully smiled. Then I'll be troubling you. Fiona immediately shot May a glance. May looked like she was about to die from anxiety, but in the end, she still went to pour some water to Larry Carter. Larry Carter sat down on the sofa, under the mirror. A hint of nervousness flashed past his eyes. May brought a cup of water and placed it in front of him. Larry Carter reached out to take it, and held it in his palm, then said thanks in a low voice. May sat right beside him, prolonging her chin as she looked at him. Larry Carter was so frightened by her thoughtful expression that he quickly drank the water. Fiona suddenly sat on the sofa not too far away, retracting her serious expression from before and asked with a smile, "Mr. Carter, you are young and promising. You should have a girlfriend now, right?" Larry Carter almost choked on his saliva. He immediately shook his head and replied seriously, "No, I am busy with work. I don't think about it." "Oh. Then since you're so busy at work, you should be able to come across quite a few beauties. Is there anyone you're interested in?" Fiona could be considered a veteran in love, but her story was extremely mysterious. She had never told anyone before, and from her actions and words, it was clear that she was not someone an ordinary woman could compare to. Larry Carter was questioned in such a manner. He was stunned for a moment. He was only here to send a gift. He was not a prisoner. Why would he be asked about the situation of his family and his political background? Of course, I've seen quite a few beautiful women before. Larry Carter subconsciously sat up straight. With a light cough, he took out the airs of a man. "Then what do you think about this little sister beside you?" Fiona decided to turn into a marriage broker. If she allowed May to develop with this man with such an awkward personality, no one knew what kind of tragedy would befall her. May's entire body froze. The expression on her face froze. He had felt that something was amiss when she heard Fiona asking about Larry Carter, but now, Fiona had changed the topic to her. She could no longer be an invisible person. Larry Carter really turned his head and sized her up, and his gaze was sincere. "Very good, very beautiful." May's entire body was about to explode. She quickly glared at Fiona in embarrassment. "Do you want to choose a woman like her as your girlfriend?" Fiona boldly asked him. Larry Carter was completely terrified this time, and immediately put down the cup in his hand. His handsome face was flushed red, and he stood up anxiously. As he walked forward, the leather shoes tripped over the carpet and the whole man lay on the ground in a mess. Behind him, May and Fiona were both laughing out loud because of his unexpected performance. The glasses Larry Carter was wearing fell to the ground once again. This time, it was lucky that it was not dangerous, as he quickly picked up the glasses and ran out as if he was escaping. "Fiona, you scared him so much that he lost his soul." May angrily glared at Fiona. However, Fiona had a very interesting expression on her face. "May, have you discovered that even he doesn't dare to look you in the eye? The two of you still have room for growth. Don't talk nonsense. I think he is shocked by you." "Fiona, you have troubled me. He must have felt that it is my idea." May shyly covered her face. She felt that she had lost all face. "Idiot, if I don't ask him, would you have to reside him all your life without daring to take half a step out?" Fiona already understood her very well. May didn't say anything, because Fiona's words had really hit the mark. She didn't dare to take even half a step. because even if Larry Carter looked like a very sincere man, she didn't have the guts to do so. You have to be more direct when dealing with men. Don't you see how nervous he is when he is blushing just now? If he really doesn't have any feelings for you, then he's just leaving with easy steps right now. Fiona patted May's shoulder, consoling her with a rare smile. At this time, Elizabeth's voice came out from the spiraling staircase. What are you laughing about just now? I hear it upstairs. Is there anything to be happy about? Eliza, do we disturb your sleep? May started to blame herself. No, I am just watching a movie. Elizabeth shook her head and laughed. Fiona said, just now, Dempsey's assistant comes and brings you a lot of gifts. Come and take a look. Is it delivered here so quickly? This morning, I received a call from Joshua saying that his big brother wanted to send something over. Elizabeth had passed the past 3 months, and now it was the 4th month. Her pregnancy period gradually became smoother, and her taste became better with each passing day. Eliza, look, the people from Wilson family still value you a lot. The good thing between you and Joshua Wilson is nearing. May was sincerely happy for her. Dempsey is a good person, and he has never opposed us. What I'm worried about is the attitude of the old lady. Elizabeth sighed as she walked over. Looking at these precious gifts, she casually took out a box and opened it. It was a cute little pig carved in gold. Don't worry. The old lady will definitely let you marry Joshua for the sake of the child. May comforted Elizabeth. Fiona also comforted Elizabeth. Your relationship with Joshua Wilson is like glue. How can you be separated again? If this old lady really dotes on her grandson, she will definitely take your kind fate into consideration. Elizabeth looked at them. Thank you for your consolation, but living with you, I am also very happy. Chapter 1229, A Painstaking Arrangement. One day ago, after the Star Entertainment Media defeating Nebula Media, it took the first place once again, as the company ushered in the annual celebration and award ceremony. Joshua had teamed up to create a grand feast that shook the entire entertainment circle, and at the ceremony, Bryant was also happy to receive the Best Rookie award. At this moment, in the audience seating, it was the first time Robin had been invited to such a lively and joyous occasion. Fortunately, she was not a person who was easy to be nervous. Thus she sat calmly in her position, watching the female celebrity dressed up beautifully to receive the awards. She was still calm. However, when she heard everything about Bryant, a hint of anxiety and fervor appeared in her eyes. She switched seats, and on the huge crystal screen on the stage, she heard Bryant's name, as well as a few exchanges of roles that she knew of where he played. Robin subconsciously gripped her palm, and started sweating profusely. At this moment, a large hand gently reached over and tightly held her hand at a place that no one could see. Robin was so shocked that she quickly released him, but she could not take it off. The man continued to stare at the stage, his thin lips curling up into a smile of satisfaction. Robin was momentarily helpless. In the morning, Bryant had messed with his bad temper and rogue for a while before coaxing her to this place. Robin stood at the door and wanted to turn around and leave, but Bryant had guaranteed repeatedly that he would only invite her over as a guest, and he would definitely not let anyone know about the relationship between them. What else could Robin did? Of course, it was because she had listened to his words and followed him in. Furthermore, she was arranged to sit behind him. Was this meant it doesn't matter? Robin felt that she could no longer fully trust the words of this man. and could only trust a few words of him. As expected, the moment she sat down, a few celebrities by her side immediately came over to ask for her identity, which made Robin felt extremely awkward. However, Bryant just introduced her flawlessly. "This is my friend. We grew up together. She is my brother." Robin glared at him. How was she like his bro? She was obviously a woman. Hearing the words brothers, all the curious glances were turned away. As expected, once a woman was recognized by a man as having the potential to be a brother, she could no longer be treated as a woman. Only now did Robin have a peaceful place, but at this moment, Bryant had actually extended his hand to shake hers. She was truly shocked. "In a while, I might go on stage to receive the award. Later, I give you this award." Bryant came over and whispered into her ear with a smile. "Why you give it to me? That's what you do your best." Robin was already blushing and beating her heart because of the heat she breathed in. "Isn't it all women who manage money in a family? This prize, as well as the general gold, will all belong to you." Just as Bryant said that, the host and guests on stage happily read out his name, and even invited him to go up and receive the award. Only then did Bryant let go of Robin's hand and went up the stage to receive his prize. Robin dazed, and her mind was in a mess. She looked up, and within the frame of the mirror, Bryant was an elegant, confident, and enchantingly elegant person. It was as if that figure had become the deepest mark of her entire life. "This man is crazy," she murmured, but she couldn't take her eyes off of him again. As Bryant stood on the stage, the person next to him was obviously good looking, but why Robin thought that there was no one handsome than Bryant? Could it be that in the eyes of a lover, there was not only a beautiful girl, but also a beautiful man? Bryant's lines were very concise, and he only thanked the people around his before saying a sentence that he would continue to work hard, and directly walked off the stage. When he once again returned to his side and sat down, Robin's heart had already been strongly moved. She thought that it would be difficult for her to have such an emotional intense moment in her entire life, but the heavens had arranged for her to be given a man as beautiful as the moon. How could her heart not beat wildly? "Feel it." Bryant was a little smug. He directly grabbed her finger and stuck it on top of the cool cup. "Don't do that." Robin blushed red and quickly retracted her hand. Bryant turned around and stared at her without blinking. "Your face is so red. Is the air conditioning here that hot?" "Yes, sir." Robin immediately nodded. "Oh, that's so sad. Such a beautiful man sitting next to you, actually don't make you blush. Instead, several machines make you blush. Am I going to be jealous of the air conditioner next?" Bryant lowered his voice and whispered into her ear. Robin trembled. This man's imagination was too terrifying, or perhaps, he was deliberately teasing her. "Then hurry up and go." Robin ignored him. "No, I can't go against the air conditioner. I get electrocuted to death." "Some people might be sad." Bryant continued to tease her teasingly. The feeling of being moved by just now had been disrupted by him. Did this man know how to chat? "I won't be sad for a fool." Robin bit her lips and replied him. In such a vicious heart, Bryant continued to look at her with an injured face. Bryant was really looking at Robin, the kind that didn't even blink, not even moving the corner of his eyes. Bryant realized that although Robin was only wearing light makeup today, why did he feel that it was even more beautiful than those women with heavy makeup? This made his heart itch. He always wanted to find an opportunity to tease her in order to stop the itch. Therefore, Bryant felt that this woman picking this kind of job really made him a little unhappy. She argued with others in the court every day. Her lips were full of fine lines, matching with a pair of big eyes and a beautiful nose. When she spoke again with her lips, it would give off a tempting feeling, as if he was going to kiss her at any time. "Why are you staring at me?" Robin looked at him twice in a row and realized that he was staring at her in a daze. "This isn't gazing, this is staring. Do you understand?" But Bryant just laughed. Robin was speechless once again, but although she stubbornly refused to admit it, her heart was overflowing with joy. While the two of them were lifting their poles from time to time, a few nearby media reporters were staring at them. Furthermore, the Bryant was so eye-catching today that they had been paying attention to him the entire time. Seeing that he and the woman beside him were whispering to each other from time to time as if there was always a topic to talk about, which the reporters obviously caught all. But what made the reporters curious was that this woman was actually not the female celebrity in their circle, but instead she seemed like an outsider. What relationship did she have with Bryant? Would it be able to repel all of the female celebrities and successfully sit on his right-hand side? In fact, not only were the reporters curious, even some of the female celebrity felt dissatisfied. Now that Bryant had risen up against the flow, killing his way through the blue sky and obtaining the most popular award, one had to know that it had always been Joshua who had won the award. Joshua was really behind the scenes, which made countless fans break their hearts, but there was no way because the competition between Star Entertainment Media and Nebula Media had also slowly surfaced. Everyone now knew the challenge of Joshua's company was facing, and as the boss of the company, he would naturally not stand idly by and watch. Fortunately, he had entered the entertainment circle on his own, and the news regarding him in the future could still be spread, so he did not harm those loyal fans of his. Today was the best opportunity, and if anyone could sit next to them, then there would definitely be a scandal that would appear the next day. However, no one had expected that there would already be someone sitting at that seat. Furthermore, it was a woman that they thought was ordinary. What Robin did not know was that the reason Bryant brought her here by force was only to prevent him from having a scandal with another woman. But unfortunately, the woman beside him was completely unaware of this, so she naturally wouldn't be moved. Chapter 1230, Look for Trouble. The celebration hosted by Star Entertainment Media was extremely successful. It was an unprecedented feast that was deeply ingrained in the hearts of the people. It was an unforgettable event. After the celebration ended, there was still an exchange of banquets. The place was still lively, with fragrant clothes and crisscrossing cups. After Joshua regained control of the company, he changed the high-profile attitude of his big star and instantly became low-key. Of course, he couldn't do anything about it today. So many people came over to toast him. Even though there were several assistants helping him pour the wine, he was still drunk from drinking. "Take me upstairs to rest. I'm tired." Joshua pressed between his brows and spoke to the people beside him with a headache. "Okay, boss. Be careful. Don't fall down." Immediately, someone came over to lend a hand. Joshua took a step forward and felt softened. He almost fell down. He was really drunk, because he was happy in his heart. That's why he was drinking too much. With both career and love, how can he not have a good time? Fortunately, two of the young brothers were very supportive. They directly lifted Joshua up and walking towards the exit of the banquet hall. There was a pair of eyes at the side. It had always been wrapped around Joshua's body, and the lady was Patty Jones. Patty Jones' fondness towards Joshua had already exceeded the bottom line. She could be considered to be in love with him, and it also belonged to the kind of love that wanted to own, greedily wanted to take all of his possessions. Patty Jones found out that Elizabeth had returned and was even continuing to be with Joshua, which made her heart to feel as if it was being stabbed by a knife. She did not know why she could not bear Elizabeth. Previously, there was a rich girl called Kathy who spread the rumor with Joshua, but she did not feel as much resentment. She just could not bear to see Elizabeth be happier than her, and Elizabeth obtain the man she wanted. Therefore, Patty Jones paid close attention to Joshua's every move, because she had the very bold thought if Joshua was drunk and he did not know who the woman beside him was, would she have the chance to befriend him once? With this thought in mind, Patty Jones was naturally making preparations for everything. When she saw that Joshua was really drunk and was dragged out of the banquet hall, she knew that the chance had come. She quickly said something to her friend and pretended to be drunk. She wanted to go to bed. After Patty Jones left, she stared at the elevator. Seeing the floor that the elevator had reached, her lips curled up into a pleased smile. Patty Jones quickly went to the washroom and changed out of her evening clothes. She wore a set of casual clothes that Elizabeth had left for home in the past, but now, she looked more and more like Elizabeth. She became the people who she hated before, and she even had not found it. After Patty Jones changed into her equipment, she quietly walked towards the elevator. She rode on the elevator and arrived at Joshua's floor. The rooms here were all luxurious suites, and for a moment, Patty Jones did not know how to find the number of Joshua's room. Coincidentally, there were two waiters at the side who quickly walked over and were happily chatting about how Joshua seemed to have been sent up for arrest. Patty Jones gazed forward. There was no doubt that it would be the last room. Patty Jones took a deep breath, and the greed in her heart became even stronger. She was about to go crazy to miss Joshua, so, no matter if she was right or wrong, she just wanted to get him, even once. It was enough. Patty Jones walked over quickly, tidied up her clothes, and then knocked on the door. She knew that Joshua wasn't really that drunk. If he had heard her knocking on the door, he might have come over to open it. Just as Patty Jones knocked on the door a few times, there was no response from the inside. She was a little disappointed. Just as she was about to leave, the door behind her opened. Joshua stared at her back and called out in an intoxicated tone, "Eliza." Patty Jones' figure was somewhat similar to Elizabeth. Furthermore, in order to imitate Elizabeth, she had cut her long hair to the point that it was almost similar to Elizabeth's, and the colors were all similar. It was no wonder that Joshua would call her by the wrong name when he saw her back. She was just standing there nervously and did not dare to turn around. She was not sure how drunk Joshua was. If he recognized her, how would she explain? "Eliza." Joshua called out to her by her name suddenly, and reached out from behind her back. His tall body directly covered Patty Jones and hugged her tightly. Following that, she was pulled back 2 steps by the man and entered the room. Patty Jones was being stiff, but her heart was filled with ecstasy. Was Joshua really drunk? Patty Jones was secretly pleased with herself. It seemed that her modification this time was very successful. "Why do you come? Don't I tell you to stay at home and not run around?" What do we do if injure the child? There was a soft reproach of Joshua, and then his thin lips were about to kiss. Patty Jones' mind buzzed. Her entire body was trembling uncontrollably. Child? Elizabeth was pregnant? Was she pregnant with Joshua's child? This news simply sent Patty Jones into an abyss. Her entire body was ice cold. Even if Joshua were to lightly hug her from behind, she wouldn't feel any more warmth or happiness. Who are you? You are not Eliza. Just as Patty Jones' mind was spinning, and she was thinking of shattering Elizabeth's dream, the man who was holding her suddenly pushed her away fiercely. Patty Jones was shocked once again as she laid on the ground in a sorry state. Patty Jones. Joshua squinted his eyes. Obviously, he was not drunk enough to not wake up. Patty Jones was so scared that she quickly raised her hand to cover her face. Joshua, when I see you drunk, I want to come over and take care of you. Are you all right? Patty Jones came to a realization and quickly found an excuse to speak. You dress like Eliza, and now are you coming to my room to take care of me? Joshua laughed coldly. No, I don't intentionally dress like her. I am just accidentally splashed wine on my dress, so I change into a new set of clothes. Patty Jones was so scared that she couldn't even speak properly. Get out. Joshua didn't want to hear her excuses. Joshua, you are drunk and need someone to take care of. Let me take care of you. I really care about you. When Patty Jones heard him say that he would let her go, she became so anxious that her face turned red. I don't need it. Get out. Joshua had just treated her as Elizabeth. That was why he dragged her inside. Patty Jones' heart trembled, and the man's voice became colder. You're not leaving. Are you planning on letting me drag you out? No, Joshua, you rest well. I will go out immediately. Patty Jones was so scared that she did not dare stay and anxiously ran out. The plan had failed, and she had even lost face. Patty Jones' face was filled with unwillingness. Where does it goes wrong? Joshua didn't even see my face. How can he know that I'm not Elizabeth? Patty Jones was so flustered and exasperated that she was making wild guesses in her mind. Could it be perfume? Patty Jones was smart enough to let her finally guess the reason. She was shocked, and in an instant she had the urge to smash herself to death. That was right, Elizabeth. That little bitch had never had the money to buy perfume. So naturally, she wouldn't be used to spraying perfume on herself. Unfortunately, she had sprayed a lot of expensive perfume on her neck today, so by relying on the scent, was Joshua sure that she was not Elizabeth? I'm so stupid. Patty Jones was so angry that she wanted to slap herself twice. She had clearly learned everything to Elizabeth. But it was just the perfume that harmed her. Child. They actually have child. Patty Jones laughed mournfully. Her eyes filled with hatred. Elizabeth's life was really good. When she first met Joshua, she was just a small journalist. But now, Joshua regarded her as the treasure and was even willing to let her give birth to a child. Patty Jones hated this to the extreme. She was infuriated. Why are you doing this to me? What did I do wrong? I am better than her in every aspect, so why doesn't the heavens pity me? My love is also true. My feelings for him are all true. Patty Jones cried bitterly as she squatted on the ground, roaring in his heart. Tears fell down her face which washed away the powder. I can't accept this. I can't accept this. Patty Jones pummeled the wall with her hand and mumbled to herself. Chapter 1231. Touch is taboo. Patty Jones' bad luck was obviously not over yet. When she left while wiping away her tears, she did not know that, in another corridor, a man and a woman were excitedly flipping through the photos that were just taken. It seems that our trip is worth. Joshua actually hugs the female artiste in the hotel. Haha, this news is really good. If this news gets out, our company will earn a lot. The man in the middle lowered his voice excitedly and immediately thought of his bonus. It was definitely enough to make him happy for a while. However, the female asked in a flustered and uneasy manner, "This is a beautiful story regarding Joshua. Do we really dare to report it? What's more, his company in the entertainment circle is considered to be the leader now. If we risk our lives to take in his scandal, will we be directly laid off? What are you afraid of? We only shoot it when we risk our lives to get away from his protection. Whether or not we could do it depends on our editor's decision. Let's go. Let's hurry back to report to the company." That man couldn't wait to destroy the situation. Joshua slurped the alcohol in the hotel. Thinking of his actions just now, he inexplicably wanted to meet Elizabeth quickly. Thus, he called for someone to directly send him back. He reeked of alcohol, and was directly carried upstairs by someone. May and Fiona had already turned a blind eye to this loving couple, and only needed to do their own things to be at ease. Joshua swayed as he pushed open the door and entered the bedroom. He was startled to discover that Elizabeth was not in the bedroom. Finally, he heard two light coughs coming from the direction of the balcony. His spirit was roused and he immediately walked towards the balcony. Pushing the door open, he saw a slender figure lying on the back of a long chair. Elizabeth took out a book and covered her face. He didn't know if she was sleeping or enjoying the cool summer night breeze. There was a bright light shone in the warm light. Joshua looked at her cute movements. His lips moved slightly. He had just woken up but he was still swaying slightly. He squatted beside the chair and gently reached out to take the book that was covering her face. Elizabeth, who was blinded by the light, slowly opened her star-like eyes and looked at the man who was squatting beside her. "Do you laying here alone to think about life?" Joshua asked her softly with a smile on his face. Elizabeth quickly supported herself up with both hands and smelled the faint scent of human wine. She muttered, "Are you drunk?" "No, I'm still very sober." The man stood up and sat by her side. He reached out with his long arm and gently pulled her into his embrace. "I've seen your company's celebration. Why don't you come up and speak? I am looking forward to seeing you." Elizabeth obediently leaned into his embrace, and within her words, there was a sense of loss. "Haven't I come back? You can see as much as you want." The smile on Joshua's face became wider and wider. Was this woman hinting that she missed him? "That's different," Elizabeth said softly. "Why is it different?" Joshua had a strange expression. He was the one and only. Elizabeth bit her lower lip, then said unhappily, "I want to see how high-spirited you are. You used to give off a feeling of confidence when you go up on stage to receive awards. Is that so? Why don't I notice it?" Joshua was extremely happy. Could it be that this woman had watched him accept the award on stage multiple times? "Of course, you don't notice it yourself." Elizabeth felt inexplicably shy, and felt like she was infatuated, expressing her feelings to him. "Then the next time I will stand on stage, I will let you see me." Of course, Joshua had to fulfill her dream. "You don't have to do this for me. What about you? I like to do anything for you." Joshua immediately interrupted her words, and gently kissed her hair. Smelling her clear fragrance, his body suddenly felt a burning sensation. He couldn't help but reach out to lift her chin and kiss her lips, but he was pushed away in disgust by the woman. "No, if you drink, you can't kiss me." Elizabeth was not a delicate person. She was only thinking for the child in her womb. Only now did Joshua remember that she was still carrying his child. He could only endure that impulse, restraining the flames in his body, and muttered, "Eliza, how long has it been since we last stayed together?" Of course, Elizabeth understood what he meant by together. Her beautiful face was flushed red. "The doctor suggests that we cannot do the thing during this time." Joshua moved closer to her ear and bit her earlobe. "Then what if I don't feel good?" Elizabeth looked at him in confusion. "Don't you make your own move?" Joshua's handsome face instantly flushed red. He asked in embarrassment, "What's the point of doing it myself?" "In that case, you are thinking of..." Elizabeth blinked her beautiful eyes. Even though Joshua didn't speak anymore, that pair of shining eyes had already begun to plead silently. Elizabeth lowered her head and laughed, not knowing why, but when Joshua looked at her in this way, she felt a sense of accomplishment. Yet, this man would also have such a pitiful expression because she thought that she was the only one who would do that. "Let's go." Although Elizabeth really wanted to see his current appearance, it was rare to see it again, but she loved him dearly, so she had to promise him. Only then did Joshua smile. He started to understand the benefits of having a little girl by his side. While Joshua and Elizabeth were enjoying the sweet time of a romance, on the other side, in one of the chief editor's office, a group of people was intensely discussing about it. In the end, they decided to upload the exclusive news that they had finally managed to get online. Thus, the next morning, when the summer sun climbed to the highest point of the Twin Towers, a shocking piece of news instantly dominated the entertainment page's headlines, and instantly became a hot topic. In the picture, Joshua was holding a woman in his arms, and the two of them were standing in the corridor of the hotel. Behind them was a brightly lit hotel suite. Of course, this woman was the Patty Jones that Joshua had mistaken as Elizabeth. There were only 3 pictures, of which 2 were unable to clearly see Patty Jones' face. Only the last one, Patty Jones turned her face to the side, and when the light fell upon her face, Joshua's face became a little blurry, but her face was visible to others. When the news appeared, Joshua immediately knew about it. His entire body trembled. Could it be that there was a reporter lurking around last night? Or perhaps, was this reporter here on purpose, who wanted to take a picture of him hugging her? No matter what was said, the severity of this matter had made Joshua very angry. As for the person in question, Patty Jones, her face was also pale white. Logically speaking, to be hugged like this by Joshua, she must be happy and sweet, but this sweetness would probably turn into a knife piercing through the body. What's going on? How could it have been captured by someone? Patty Jones was so shocked that she couldn't even hold her phone. What she wanted was not to be exposed to the light of others. She just needed to secretly show her love to Joshua once. Now, her wish was not come true. She had come looking for misfortune. Patty Jones sat on the ground paralyzed and was unable to recover from her shock for a long time. At that moment, her cell phone rang. She took a look and her heart was in her throat. It was a call from the company. "Hey," Patty Jones' voice trembled. "The boss wants you to meet him in his office in half an hour. Come over quickly." It was her agent, and her voice sounded anxious. Am I finished?" Patty Jones could not help but ask in fear, "You're not done yet. When you see the boss, you're really done for." The agent did not want to scare her, but she knew Joshua's personality very well. If news of this was spread, Joshua would definitely be furious, because he had already heard that Elizabeth was pregnant, and was Joshua's child. It could be seen that Joshua had never given up on loving this woman from the start to the end. Now, the person he loved was pregnant, yet he was making a scandal. If it was anyone else, they would also be furious right now. Chapter 1232, Satisfaction. Patty Jones rushed to the company in a panic. When she stood at the door of Joshua's office with a pale face, she actually did not have the guts to knock. "Patty Jones, hurry up and enter. Don't make the boss wait until he's impatient," an assistant passing by reminded her in a cold voice. Patty Jones knew that she was doomed this time, so she could only bite the bullet and knock on the door. Hearing a frosty voice from inside, Patty Jones' body shivered again. Having received permission, she walked in, seeing Joshua sitting behind the desk with his ice-cold gaze. She was so frightened that she quickly lowered her head. "Joshua?" Her voice was trembling, and it was clear that she was both afraid and guilty. "Do you get someone to take those photos?" Joshua asked her coldly. "No, it isn't me, Joshua. I am wronged. I don't do such a shameless thing." Patty Jones was so scared that she quickly tried to defend herself. "Are you really innocent?" Joshua knew that a lot of reporters had come to the celebration last night. In order to take a picture of the hot news, they were all running around like ants on a hot pan. Maybe Patty Jones did not get them. She didn't have the guts to, but now that the matter had been exposed, someone had to take responsibility for it. I just want to go upstairs and take care of you. I mean no harm." Patty Jones pretended to have a wronged and pitiful expression as she said that. "Tell me the truth." Joshua stared at her deadly. How could Patty Jones endure his cold and oppressive gaze, which made her to reply immediately, "Joshua, I like you, so I want to go upstairs to look for you, but I really don't know if there's a reporter here. Nor do I know if you will suddenly hug me. I'm also very uneasy and scared, and I hope you can forgive me. I can explain this to the media. I don't need it. Come with me to a place now." Joshua stood up and walked out with a cold expression, where Patty Jones was so scared that her lips turned white. "Explain it to Eliza." Joshua had just called May, and knew that Eliza was still sleeping, but the fact that she did not know about it did not mean that she would not know about it in the future. In order to not affect her emotions, Joshua had to take care of this matter first. Patty Jones felt cold as though her heart had been blown by a cold wind, asking her to explain it to Elizabeth. "Why, if you still want to stay at the company, come with me. If you don't want to stay in this circle, leave immediately." Joshua was also not a cold and unreasonable person. He knew that Patty Jones' mind was impure, but if she didn't hire the reporter, he could give her a chance to redeem herself. "I'll go." When Patty Jones heard this, all of her grudges were immediately suppressed. She could not leave the company. Once she left, she would never see Joshua again, and in order to prove that she was not inferior to Elizabeth, she would even want to shine in this circle, making everyone remember her name. Patty Jones drove her car and followed closely behind Joshua. When they arrived at the villa complex, Patty Jones' eyes were wide open. The Jones family was only generally wealthy, and the villas were all self made which couldn't even be compared to the villas that the wealthy families were living in. In the past, Elizabeth lived in a small storage room in her house, but today, she was able to live in such a spacious and bright villa. This kind of gap made Patty jealous. In front of the door of a large villa, Patty Jones raised her head. This was a set of villas connected to two buildings, covering a spacious and beautifully built place, which was definitely the place where she can live in her dreams. Joshua led Patty Jones into the house, where May and Fiona were in the living room. When they saw the rumored female lead, they all stared at her as if they were looking at a monster. Patty Jones felt extremely ashamed, as though she was a shameful thing. Eliza is almost downstairs. I just hear that she seems to be up. Seeing that Joshua was about to go upstairs, May spoke up quickly. The moment her voice stopped, the sound of light footsteps came from the stairs. A calm figure walked down from the spiraling white jade stairs. Elizabeth saw that Joshua was standing in the living room. She was surprised, and then, she saw Patty Jones, who was by the side of the door, and she became even more puzzled. So, she went downstairs quickly, looked at Joshua and asked, "Why is she here? Does something happen to my aunt?" "No, it's me." A hint of embarrassment and self-blame flashed across Joshua's handsome face. Elizabeth became even more surprised, but right after, she saw Patty Jones quickly walk over and say, "Elizabeth, I admit that I was in the wrong last night. I shouldn't have dressed up like you to see Joshua. I caused him to mistake me as you, and we got caught by the reporters." Elizabeth looked confused, so Joshua took out his phone and showed it to her. "Someone sent it out earlier. I am afraid that you would be angry, so I bring her here to explain it." Elizabeth's finger swiped twice on the screen, and her beautiful eyes immediately stared at Patty Jones. "Why are you wearing my previous clothes?" Patty Jones became even more ashamed. If it was someone else, then of course they wouldn't be able to tell there was a problem with the clothes, but Elizabeth knew about it. So when she explained just now, she also said that it was on purpose to dress up like her. When Patty Jones opened her mouth, she was unable to say anything. Previously, she would only mock coldly at Elizabeth's poor taste of clothes, but now, she had taken one of her previous dresses to seduce her boyfriend. This was truly too embarrassing. Joshua obviously knew that Patty Jones had some ulterior motive, and his face became even colder. "Don't pretend to be her from now on." I won't ever do it again." Patty Jones couldn't even raise her head. May immediately taunted her as well. "Fiona, do you notice that her hair is the same as Eliza's? Even the color and curls are the same. It's no wonder that Joshua recognizes the wrong person." Patty Jones was full of shame. Elizabeth had never had a good impression of Patty, and now that Patty had gotten closer to her, Elizabeth could not help but mock Patty coldly. "If I remember correctly, don't you look down at my clothes before?" She must have felt that Joshua loved you and also liked your kind of dressing. It is like she is clenching her teeth, but it is a pity that she doesn't seem to be the same. May was already poisonous of her mouth, but now that she saw that Patty Jones actually had such an unbearable thought, she naturally wouldn't let her go. Patty Jones covered her face and ran out while crying. This time, she was extremely ashamed. "Look, she runs away with a guilty conscience." May folded her hands across her chest, and snorted while staring at the door. Joshua's gaze was fixated on the girl beside him. He wanted to see her reaction. Elizabeth raised her beautiful eyes, looked into his eyes for 2 seconds, and laughed. What's wrong? You're really afraid that I'll get jealous. I'm afraid you don't believe me. Joshua signed. You bring her here to explain it to me. So how could I not believe it? Furthermore, the clothes that she is wearing are mine. She would definitely not buy such clothes herself. She likes you. I know that. She probably knows that you are drunk, so she wants to take advantage of you, Elizabeth said with a smile. If you're not angry, then I'll go back to the company first. Joshua's heart was finally at ease. Okay, you can come back and explain it to me. That's enough. Elizabeth knew that Joshua was being even more careful with this relationship. It must be related to her disappearing from the beginning. It was her fault, which caused this man to lose his sense of security. So no matter what happened in the future, she would believe him. After Joshua left, May and Fiona didn't feel anything. The feeling of having a huge bowl of dog food forcefully poured inside them, which was really hard to describe with a single sentence. In the main office, Alvina Miller went to work the next day. It was just as Joseph Grant had said. She was being ostracized, and other people looked at her as if they were looking at an idiot. Alvina Miller secretly competed with each other. She absolutely should not let others look down on herself. She had to work hard. In the noon, Alvina Miller was in the cafeteria lining up for lunch. She stood in the crowd and was very picky. She was the new one, so she was popular with the unmarried young men. As a result, Alvina Miller wasn't lonely while she was queuing up. All the men around her were looking for her to chat, and even if they were just asking her about some simple work matters, they would definitely find a topic to talk about with her. Alvina Miller was currently being ostracized. Since someone was talking to her, of course she would be happy and casually chatted with him. However, what she didn't notice was that outside the cafeteria door, a handsome figure was already standing there, waiting respectfully. Chapter 1233. Consequences of Vice? President's Anger. Perhaps everyone was hungry. The atmosphere in the cafeteria became lively. Everyone was relaxed and the smiles on their faces became even more pronounced. Alvina Miller obediently stood in the center of the line, following the crowd, moving forward bit by bit. Several male colleagues standing in front of Alvina had been looking back to talk to her, and no one knew what they were talking about. Alvina Miller laughed happily from time to time. Of course, this kind of scene was very common in the cafeteria, and usually, beauties would make men fall for her. It was not only Alvina Miller who was surrounded, but many other women were also taking the initiative to chat with their male colleagues. However, those women were no longer in Joseph Grant's eyes. Only the smiling Alvina Miller, whose smiling was like a needle pierced into his chest, causing him to feel short of breath. He wished that he could lose his noble identity as vice president and directly walk over, dragging her away from the group of men. It was finally Alvina Miller's turn. She held onto the plate, and a man behind her suddenly reached out for a bottle of milk from the window and placed it on Alvina Miller's plate like a thief. Seeing that, Alvina Miller immediately turned around. The man seemed to be explaining something. Alvina smiled and accepted the milk. Joseph Grant was naturally unable to hear what they were talking about since he was far away, but it was obvious that this woman seemed to really enjoy the feeling of being surrounded and paid attention to by a man. The big palm clenched into a fist inexplicably. Joseph Grant thought about that he cooked delicious food for her at home. Well, he never saw her smile like this before. That man only gave her a bottle of milk, and she went back to smile and talk to him from time to time. If she sold his sincerity, would it be worth a little money in her eyes? Joseph Grant had never been angered that his face turned ashen, but at this moment, his face became gloomy and the lines on his face tightened, as though he wanted to crush her. Mr. Vice President, let's go eat. I help you. I'm not eating anymore. Joseph Grant rarely came to the cafeteria to eat. After all, he was busy with government work, so he did not have the time to appreciate the people's feelings. Today was a rare day to come to the cafeteria, but he saw the scene that made him extremely depressed, which affected his appetite. The aide-de-camp beside him was stunned. He looked at the long queue, then looked at Vice President's changed face. He was confused. A man in a black suit turned around with a gloomy face. Several staff members behind him were scared to make a detour. The aura of the Mr. Vice President was really scary today. They didn't even have the courage to go forward and greet him. However, which gust of wind did it blow today? Why would the Mr. Vice President appear in the public dining hall? Was he here to check? Everyone was panicking. Joseph Grant walked away calmly, and Alvina Miller, who was at the canteen eating, was completely unaware of her actions which had angered a person just now, and the man was waiting to go home and count for her. Around 6 p.m., Joseph Grant's trip was directly shortened today. Other than the government affairs that he had to handle, he left the office around 6 p.m. with his bodyguards protecting. Outside of the quaint building that Joseph Grant lived in, there were also many stops to ensure his safety. Alvina Miller did not know that she was completely immersed in his territory. She even thought that she was entering and exiting his domain, and thought that the job of vice president was not very different from commuting. While he was just in charge of national affairs. In the afternoon, Alvina Miller drove her small sports car from the public parking lot in the distance and jogged back home. However, when her sports car stopped at the first checkpoint, the two mighty soldiers standing in front of the gate gestured for her to stop. Alvina Miller's heart skipped a beat. What was going on? Normally, when her car entered the store, there wouldn't be a need to stop and be inspected. Could it be that something important happened today? Boy, why do you stop me? Alvina Miller hurriedly and politely pushed the door down, revealing her 8 teeth as she asked with a smile. The superior has ordered that all passing vehicles are to be inspected. The guard was very meticulous as he spoke seriously. Oh. Then do you want me to show a driver's license and a warrant card? It's all here. I get it for you. Alvina Miller was a good citizen who followed the law, so of course she was willing to cooperate. She went to the car to pick up her driver's license and a warrant card. After a careful examination, the guard returned the cards back to her and asked, "Please explain your relationship with Mr. Vice President." What, do I even need to say this? Alvina Miller was puzzled. Why did they become so strict? I'm his friend. I'm living in his house now. I often drive in and out. You should have seen this car before, and you didn't stop me before. I'm sorry, miss. I was newly transferred here. I do not know who you are, but for the safety of Vice President, please take me seriously. This is not a joke. The other party's selfless and emotionless expression immediately made Alvina Miller drop her head. I know, I'm not joking. I'm also serious. If you don't believe me, I called Joseph Grant and have him come and tell you. Alvina Miller felt that the situation was serious and it was necessary for Joseph Grant to help her out. Therefore, Alvina Miller took out her phone from her bag and seriously looked through to contact Joseph Grant. She called him directly. The phone rang for a long time, but no one answered. Alvina Miller saw the doubt in that soldier's eyes, and immediately laughed at him. "Mr. Vice President may be busy. It's fine. I'll call again. Please give me some time." Alvina Miller was filled with anxiety. Why was Joseph Grant not answering the phone? Could he be busy? When thinking about that, Alvina was afraid that if this soldier really didn't let her in, she wouldn't have barged in. But it was almost dark, and she still wanted to cook dinner for that man. Alice, why was difficult for her to please Joseph? Hey, finally, when the phone rang to the last second, it slowly came over a deep, lazy male voice. "Joseph Grant, is that you?" Just listening to this voice, Alvina Miller was not sure, so she could only confirm. The man's voice was instantly tainted with unhappiness. "You can't even remember my voice. Then what do you think I am in your heart?" "No, no, no. I can remember your voice. It's yours. It's yours. Quickly tell this guard here to let me in," Alvina Miller immediately said with a smile. "What's wrong?" Joseph Grant asked despite knowing the answer, with a calm tone. "It's this guard who's new. He's not letting my car in right now, and he even has to reveal the relationship between you and me. I tell him that we're friends, but he doesn't believe me, so you tell him." Alvina Miller cannot hear the hidden thoughts of this man, so she asked him to help in such a hurry. "Do you tell him we are friends?" "Alvina Miller, do you know how many people pretend to be my friends and want to come here to harm me? So, can my friend be allowed to pass?" Joseph Grant's originally happy mood had been washed clean by the word friend. It turned out that this woman was really only treating him as a friend, just like those men she chatted with in the cafeteria today. "Oh, it's that serious, then. Then what should I say about our relationship?" Alvina Miller's brain short-circuited. She really did not know what to say. "If you tell him that you are my woman, he will naturally let you in," the man suddenly reminded her kindly. This time, Alvina Miller blushed deeply. Why did the words that came out of this man sound so light? Something didn't seem right. The other party immediately hung up the phone. It was obvious that he didn't want to help her anymore. Alvina Miller sighed bitterly. Joseph Grant really wanted to dig a hole for her and make her jump down willingly. "Try it, then." Alvina Miller could only turn her head and looked at the gatekeeper in embarrassment, and said softly, "Actually, I am Joseph Grant's girlfriend and fiancée. Show your ID card." Alvina Miller quickly found it and handed it over with both hands. "Sorry for disturbing you. You can enter now." The guard saw her and went back to his post to open the door for her. Alvina Miller,